It's Steelers 365 here at TribLive.com. I'm Ken Laird. All brought to you by our good friends at Eastern H2O in the Fox Chapel Plaza. Check them out if you're headed up to the mountains, Seven Springs, Hidden Valley, wherever your slopes are. Get your skis and snowboards waxed up and ready to go. And check out their great sales and specials, the Reactor watches, EasternH2O.com. NFL Draft Scouting Combine just about wrapping up in Indianapolis, and it gave us an extra look at the linebacker crop yesterday at the Combine. And we'll take a look at outside linebackers, pass rushers today as our special feature. The Steelers picking at 17 would have certainly a chance to snag one. Typically, there are between 4 to 7 pass rushers which go in the first round of the draft every year. Last year, there were a bunch, actually. The 7 that went last year were led by Bruce Irvin right off the top, which was kind of a surprise to some folks. But before all was said and done, you had Quentin Coples, Melvin Ingram, Shea McClellan, Chandler Jones, Whitney Merciless, and Nick Perry all go off the board. And, of course, Pittsburgh now in their current situation with James Harrison getting toward the end of the line, Lamar Woodley coming off a down year. They're not quite sure what they have in the backup crop, Chris Carter and Jason World, so they could be looking there. It's a weird-looking group, though, also for this crop coming out. The consensus number one may be Dion Jordan. As we get further along here, he had a terrific scouting combine, the Oregon product. He wore number 96 there if you saw the Ducks play, and he is long and athletic. Mike Mayock of the NFL Network compares him to Alden Smith, a kind of a raw and real burgeoning pass rusher with long arms on the edge. But he's 6'6", 248. He'd be ideal in a 3-4 that can stand up and drop. He did a lot of that at Oregon too, but I think unfortunately for the Steelers, he'll be well gone by the time they pick unless they want to be aggressive and move up for him. He's kind of the safest of the bunch. So I think he's going to be gone top 5. And next, you're probably looking at Jarvis Jones of Georgia, or potentially he could drop a little bit because of some medical issues. He's got stenosis, which is a narrowing of the spinal column. He was a USC kid who transferred after he had a stinger and had some problems. He sat out a year. He was really productive at Georgia his last couple years, but he also has had some ups and downs on the tape against Alabama. He's struggled to stop the run a little bit, so he's a project in that sense. At the Combine, he didn't work because of medical issues. His pro day is actually going to be very big for him on March 21st, so we've got some time to see how fast Jarvis Jones runs. But the other guy who may go top 5 and is really, you've been seeing him with the Steelers in a couple of mock drafts, is Ezekiel Ansah from BYU, 6'5", 274. It's a little heavy to be playing outside linebackers, stand up in the 3-4. Some guys have done it. Chandler Jones is a comparison with the Patriots if you saw them this year. But this guy is quite a story. Came from West Africa. Mormon mission got him to go to BYU. He had never played football until he got there. Actually wanted to be a basketball player. So he's completely raw. He's just learning the game. He's only a couple of years in. But his combine numbers are through the roof. 4'6", 40 at 274 pounds. Athletic, speed. He might be a top 10 pick, too, because you can't get these pass rushes in free agency. These teams are going to always overvalue the guys that can get to the quarterback, and I think somebody's going to take a stab at him, but push comes to shove before he gets to 17 as well. So you may have those 3 guys gone by the time Pittsburgh picks. Then you're left with the next crop, 3 or 4 guys who are maybe questioners. Bjorn Werner from Florida State looks like more of a defensive end than he does a stand-up, get to the quarterback guy, but he is somebody to watch. He didn't run real well. He 4'8", 40. He's kind of compared to Chris Long. Didn't look terrific in the drills in Indianapolis, so I'm curious to see where Werner goes, a junior coming out of FSU. More on the Steelers' wheelhouse, a guy that I think that will be there when he's there would be Barkevious Mingo from LSU or his teammate Sam Montgomery. But both have questions. They both talked to the press and were basically admitted that they took some plays off and they weren't working very hard, which on one hand is good for the honesty factor, but on the other hand, why did you take plays off? And they've already got a guy in Woodley now who's had a little bit of a commitment issue or a keep in shape issue. And also, Mingo, who's 241 pounds, they wanted him to add weight. A lot of scouts did. He didn't do that. He showed up at 241. He did run the second fastest 40 time of the D lineman, though. Second best vertical jump, second best broad jump. Last year, very disruptive. He could be one of those guys that really takes off. He had a terrific end-of-the-season bowl game against Clemson. So Barkevious Mingo is somebody to look at, and also Montgomery. The other guy that was speculated to be a high first-round pick that is really dropping is DeMontre Moore from Texas A&M. One scout called him a, quote, mess off the field, end quote. That's the last thing the Steelers need. But he is 6'4", 250, and he played in Von Miller's spot at A&M and was that kind of joker linebacker that could get to the quarterback. But he only had 12 reps on the bench, so he really had a bad trip to Indianapolis, all told. I think if you're the Steelers, you got to be looking at outside linebacker and pass rusher and saying, do we want to go Barkevious Mingo? Do we want to look at his teammate Sam Montgomery, those two bookend pass rushers that were down there for Les Miles? Or is it too risky? These guys have too many questions going on, and maybe we look for maybe a third, fourth round pick or even next year. And the more you look at the crop, I really think James Harrison's coming back for one more season, at least. They need to keep the guys in-house and hope Jason Worlds comes into his starter form. But in the next few years, it's looking like too much of a question mark beyond those top three, Deion Jordan, Jarvis Jones, and Ezekiel Ansah, who's a question in and of himself for not many years of football. So pretty interesting year for the outside linebackers and pass rushers. We'll be looking in future episodes at some of the secondary guys and safety, maybe more in the Steelers' wheelhouse. We'll see.